So there was reference to the Homestead Act and things changing in that regard. Since we're a Robin Hood district, it doesn't really have an impact on our budget, right? I mean,
No, it
it's just
does,
gonna
it
balance.
does. It does have an impact.
Okay, help me understand that impact, because my understanding was gonna balance out, because we're giving away the money now. In the future, if we have less overall revenue, we would just give away
Well,
less.
you're right in a certain sense is that we have, if you look at the line, it says function code 91, that 26 million dollars. That's money we give back to the state. That's recapture money.
Right.
And so what will happen is that we will, because the money for the homestead exemption goes up to 100,000 from 400 to 600,000, it means that we will get less money, local money. If you go back up the top, you can see that locally right now we're predicting 1.99 billion. That number will probably come down, but it'll depend on what happens with the state in the special session. But if it was just the, based on the assessed value without anything coming from the state, that number would go down. Now, what that means is that that revenue line goes down and that the expenditure line right now wouldn't change, okay? So we would increase the deficit just based on that.
Yeah, there is,
But one thing that will happen is that by bringing down our assessed value, okay, what happens is that our what's called wealth per average daily attendance goes down, and then that means that our recapture would go down.
Right.
But I don't think that the recapture will go down to the same level that the revenue, so it's not a one-for-one reduction.
Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, there's been talk that the legislature will try to hold us harmless
Yes.
on that.
Yes.
And also, there's also been talk, and I don't know if this is dead, but there was a time where the state was going to give significant revenue to the district to give teachers a higher salary.
That's right.
So I'm an optimist, so I'm hoping that, one, they hold us harmless on the taxes, and then on number two, that they give us money for teachers.
And there was also a bill that also got stopped because of the fight going up in Austin, which essentially, if you pay your recapture in February, they give you a 14% discount, and that would be total money to us. And we hope that that's going to be resurrected, because what people do now is, it's like you probably do. You pay the bill at the very last minute, and you like keep the money earning, right? So.
Rick doesn't.
Any other questions on the budget?
I do have a question. I may be incorrect, but wasn't there a bill that passed that gave money to districts for safety and security?
Yes.
As well?
But that's not in the general fund. What that is a separate bill. We right now have a grant for $7.9 million, and we're using that to build fences. And Wanda Paul is working with the police department and with her people to harden our facilities. But this grant that was out is going to be out there. We have to get a plan, and we have to go after that money. We have grant writers on staff. They earn their keep, and they will go after that money and bring that money to us for the plan that we will develop. How much it is, we don't know. The other thing is it's a limited amount, so it's not. It depends on the competition and who else goes for it. And I've always found that when grants like that go out and it's limited, it's always first come, first serve first comes, get the biggest piece of the pie. So we hope to be out the gate pretty quick.
Any other questions on the budget? Okay. Our next order of business is to consider the items to be presented at the regular board meeting that we haven't already discussed. I am going to turn to page 2 of 7 of our board agenda and start down the line. See how efficiently we can get through this. So let me ask the board, discussion and report items number 1 and 2. Does anybody have any questions, comments that they'd like to raise at this time? Discussion and report items, they're items 1 and 2. It's the 2023-24 compensation manual or the debt management activity report.
Actually, I didn't find the compensation manual online, so maybe it's a matter of,
You want to tag that for
yeah,
later? Any,
was it set?
I think it was sent by email. Does anybody have any comments, questions, concerns they'd like to raise at this point on the compensation manual or the debt management activity report, which I assume is going to be presented at the meeting?
Yeah,
Yes.
I do have a question about compensation manual.
Okay, please.
So I know historically, from what my understanding is, individuals who have shared this, compensation manual is usually available after the budget. But if I understand correctly, and if I read the email correctly, that manual will also be effective for next school year, or did I misunderstand that? Is that going to be the same?
I think it's just this school year, but I
Okay.
can get clarification.
Okay. And then so moving forward, can we expect the compensation manual, because I know it was a big concern for our community, can we expect that to be available within 2 weeks after budget approval, or what is that time frame?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Looking at the consent agenda, the items that are currently on consent, number 3 through 6, let's do those as a group. If there's anything there that anybody would like to raise or question, I've put in a question, just so the board's aware, on number 5, relative to just some language, but no other issues there. Does anybody have any comments or questions 3 through 6? Ms. Bandy?
I have a question about optional flexible school day program.
That's number 6, yes. Go ahead, please, yes.
Okay. Can we explain that? What is an optional school day program?
Tasha, do you know who?
No, I think we can get the information. It probably would have been Allison or one of the other folks.
Okay,
President
so
Bowman,
we'll get information for you on this one.
Ma'am?
some of these questions will be answered in the document that you'll be getting next week, that were not covered in the workshop.
We don't have that document?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's one of the questions.
Ms. Bandy? Okay. All right. Any other questions, 1 through 6? Items 1 through 6? Ms.
Number
Linder?
5, did you say you had I didn't understand.
Yeah, so on number 5, it's just a, for clarification, it's extremely minor. I've asked that if you look at page 22 of the packet, which is number 5, changes to the code for school year 2023, 2024, extremely minor. I'm asking that the language be, this student code of conduct is adopted by the district's board or school board.
That makes sense. Then the one I had was around the wording of restorative practices. May versus shall seemed significant there, and sort of jumping off of what you said earlier around the in-school suspension. Seems that I just wonder what's the path forward on improving.
Restorative
Our-
practices?
Yeah, using those in the district, and code of conduct wise, that wording is may right now, and so I'd love to see shall. What would it take to get there?
So we have autonomous schools right now, and they have their own discipline practices. And so we would have to take that autonomy away. Restorative practices are good. practice, but there's others that schools have used in the past. I would probably like to keep that flexibility for them. Positive behavior incentive supports, for example, PBIS is another one. There's the one that NES schools are using. So I think that's why a may probably is more in order than a shall.
It lists others, but it doesn't necessarily say that you must use any of them, that you can just use, whatever the school decides based on how it's written right now. So we don't need to discuss that. I think it's just an important point. I think a lot of community members are interested in moving away from, I think, what are considered sort of out-of-date practices into better ones for conduct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments through number 6? Yes, sir.
So I'd like to just make a comment on 2 and then also 3. And first for the CFO, based on the summary of the debt management policy, it looks like roughly $38 million in savings for the activities, the financing activities. And I was interested in what the expectation and uses of those funds were going to be going forward.
Well, it's not actually funds in our pockets. So what happens is we originally will sell bonds after the voter approval. And then we have a debt structure, kind of like a mortgage, right? Well, when the interest rates are favorable to us, we do what is called refunding of those bonds. And instead of that original mortgage payments, they change to where it's less in terms of total dollars. So we don't see any dollars, but what it is, it's a savings to us and on our debt service side. When I bring you taxes next month, next month, you're going to see an M&O side and an INS, and the INS pays that debt service. And so if it's not significant enough that we'll be dropping our tax rate on the INS, but that debt service goes over 30 years, and so that total payment, instead of being $2.3 billion, it drops down to $2.1 billion in our monthly. Actually, you pay bonds twice a year in February and August. And so those payments that we make in February and March would go down, but we don't actually see the money. It's just we save money over the terms of the bonds.
Got it. So just to clarify, we're not paying the same amount in debt service or bond payments. We're paying a smaller amount going forward, so we'll see the savings over the course of time. Got it. And then the second question was regarding agenda item 3, and that was just clarity. Was there an investigation, and what was the summary? Was there something found at fault, or I was a little confused as to what the intent of that agenda item was? It was talking about self-recovery, but I wasn't quite clear.
I think the intent is, can we accept the money from the insurance company?
Is that the intent?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Any other questions on those? Okay, let's move to we talked about number 7, which was BDD local. Let's go to 8. Yes, we did already. Any comments, questions, or concerns relative to number 8 through 14, which are the items listed on page 3 of the agenda packet? Would it be helpful for me to read those, or? Okay, good. I'd prefer not to, but I want to make sure.
You're good. No, I think it's good.
Some reason,
Okay.
just an administrative note, I couldn't pull up number 8. It doesn't pull into Legistar. And I don't know if others had the same issue, but I couldn't pull it in.
Okay, that is the
It's all those
election
contract of the election.
resolution.
Yeah,
Okay, any other concerns? Okay, let's move on to 15 through 18, which are on page 4, adoption of resolution about the debt management policy, and so on through 18.
Comment on 18. Oh,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Ms.
Go ahead.
Lindler?
Yeah, around the plan to increase pre-K. I mean, pre-K is super important, so what's the plan to increase it overall? And then from the data presented in this, for this item, I can't tell what the change was from actual to projected enrollment from 23 to 24. My reaction to this was I'd want to be aggressive in increasing pre-K, and I can't tell from this data how this is, doing that. Got no issue, I think, approving what's stated here, but I think there's a larger discussion around pre-K itself that I want to see. And also, this data doesn't give any idea around who's not getting pre-K, who's eligible and not in this group. So a lot probably to cover there.
I have one comment on that also, once you answer.
Yeah, so I don't know what was provided, so we'll do a separate report, or we'll upgrade it so that it's a little bit more clear about who's getting pre-K and who's not, or how we're expanding it.
But I do want to make the point that this is for us to continue in you're giving us authority to continue in the partnerships that are already existing. So this is a request for that, and then there may be additional requests in the future, but this is for us to continue what we've been doing.
So mine was kind of in that regard. In going forward, I was trying to see if we could pull in like beginning of year data on a rolling basis to see how the students who are in the program are actually prepared or not, and how they compare to other students, if you will. And so essentially what are the results of the program?
Yeah, the theme of how do we govern this, right? If we're going to approve it, that's great, but there's some information I think lacking here to say, like, how did they do last year? Or what are some pressures to say how we make sure that this continues to be effective?
Right.
Yeah.
So we can include that in one of the future board workshops or board meetings.
Okay.
I have a question as well. So if my numbers are correct with Head Start, I think in 2022, 23, we had 2,539 participants. 23, 24, we're projecting 2,056, so it's a drop of about 500. And so I don't know if there's a reason as far as contractual reason why we can't increase it to that same amount that we had last year, or if that's just where we're at today. Yeah.
So we'll include that in a future.
Okay.
board
Thank you.
meeting.
Okay. Any other questions through 18? No? Okay. 19, 20. I have just a general question on 19. If superintendent or Mr. Terry, or I'm not sure who within the administration, can just talk through the modifications to the cash management investment policy. Not deep dive, at least for me, but just high level, what are we doing here?
The main, two main changes. One is that if you read that policy, it's very redundant over and over again. The second is that we're following the Public Funds Investment Act, which is the law which governs all investments. And so what we're doing is we're changing it so it modifies that it tracks the Public Funds Investment Act and everything else we got rid of.
Any other questions on 19 and 20? Okay, moving on. We talked about 21 through 23 already. 24 and 25, does anybody have any comments, questions, concerns they want to raise at this time?
I have a question.
Ms. Bandy?
What type of trends or indications do we see now that warrant a suspension of requirements for years to come? 24 through 25 and 25 through 26. I guess I can understand this year we know we have a potential number of vacancies or applications that we need to go through, but what's happening in years out?
You're speaking about number 24.
Number
Is that right?
24.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Number
no, it's good.
24. I didn't clarify.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So right now, and in the past year, the district has had a hard time getting assistant principals that have certifications and that can do appraisals. So there's been this position called teacher specialist or is it called teachers? Yeah, teacher specialists that do appraisals. So there's already been some difficulty. In the profession as a whole, it's becoming more and more difficult to recruit effective administrators. This just gives us some flexibility. Again, since we're going to an evaluation system, the certification won't mean quite as much. But again, we are encouraging everybody, principal, teacher, learning coach, that if they want to stay in the profession, they should get certification, and we'll be pushing them in that direction.
So,
Go ahead.
just another administrative, so in the write-up, it says there was going to be a list, but it's not actually attached. So maybe somebody else has
I
it,
know
but
about
I didn't. It's not in
The
there.
list of waivers.
I don't think we have a list of the assistant principals.
You
I think
should.
we got some general information regarding the teachers, right?
Right, I think if we're gonna provide the list of those names, you'll probably get those in your board SharePoint. We can provide the general list that we have here, which is for the teachers, which is just location and school, but we don't want to provide the identity of individuals before we move forward.
And that's fine. I was just I got the teacher
But we can get
one,
you that
but yeah, I
information,
just
and
didn't
you'll
have
have,
anything on
yeah, we can have that information before the vote.
Any other?
Yeah,
Mr.
I have a
Martinez?
couple questions. And again, you might not have the number today. How many APs that we're seeking waivers for were HISD employees last year in a teacher specialist role? That would be helpful. And then do we have any plans as a district to help them get their certification? Now, we're encouraging them, but are we incentivizing them? Are we paying for part of their certification? Because from what I understand, it's expensive. It's expensive. So are we helping them financially to get these certifications? Is there a program in place for that?
We're not helping them financially. We are going to start the Principals Academy.
That's right.
And that has 75 APs and principals, or people who want to be principals, and that starts this year. So by the end of the year, we will have helped them get their certification, and that should help. That's the beginning of a pipeline. So I know it's not a lot, but it is the start of one.
So the program includes certification?
It
Payments
doesn't
or
require
some sort?
certification, but we're going to help them move towards their certification.
Any other, Ms. Bandy?
So currently, there is a process that allows school districts to submit a request for waivers. So why isn't that current process sufficient for what we're trying to achieve?
This is a requirement for that process, so we have to get the board approval in order to submit the application to TEA.
The board has to approve the waiver request, essentially, is that right?
Correct. And then if you vote and approve this, then we will submit the other materials required by TEA to the waiver unit.
So help me understand how it was done previously then. So if, for last school year, if there was an assistant principal that we needed to hire that didn't have a certificate, the board had to approve it?
We didn't do it last year. What they did was use teacher specialist, which is the issue he was saying.
Change
So
the
a
name.
teacher specialist is an individual on a teacher contract who performs administrative duties.
It's better for kids, better for teachers if you have an AP who's getting trained as an AP, who's attending the instruction as an AP, who's getting paid like an AP, who's doing the spot observations like an AP instead of a teacher specialist. So we do the waivers, we'll train them. Again, they'll be evaluated rigorously. If they're not up to par, then they won't be hired back as an AP. If they are, we'll continue to move them forward.
Okay, it's late, maybe it's me. I'm just not clear on if there's a process that exists today to waive an AP certification, why isn't that process sufficient?
I think it is sufficient. Maybe I don't understand the question,
Maybe
because
that's what I'm saying.
in order for us to take advantage of the waiver that the state allows,
We
the
have to-
board has to approve.
And this has not been done in previous years, is what
Okay.
I'm sorry. So if I understand correctly, then essentially they've remained teacher specialists for long periods of
Yeah,
time, for many of them.
And I can't speak a lot to what was done before. I just know that that's a process. I mean, a lot of principals in the trainings have asked, can we keep our teacher specialists because they need to do appraisals, and they're not certified. They're not even paid as APs. I think this way is much better, more transparent, but also that those folks are going to get paid the right way, and they're also going to get trained the right way.
And then just a question, remind me, what are the requirements to become an AP?
Yeah, so in order to be certified, you have to go through, I don't know exactly, I can't remember all the things that need to be done, but you have to have so many years of teaching. You have to go through the certification process in the state. There's an actual courses that you have to take and pass. You have to have a master's degree. Anything else? 24 hours of coursework.
But here in HIZ specifically, non-certified, what are the requirements to become an AP?
Be hired by a principal to be an AP.
That's it? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. But are we talking about like years, like 10 years of experience, 5 years of, what I want to, again, I may be getting into
the job description, I think, says 3 years of instruction. Do you have the job description? We can get you the job description.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on 24 and 25? Ms.
Just to
Lindner?
clarify, then the impact to kids if we don't do this waiver, right? I just want to kind of get clear on what's the impact. The impact is that we would have teacher specialists, or we'd have gaps or vacancies. Could you just repeat that, please, so we can all be clear on the impact to our students?
Yeah, so if we don't have the waiver, we'd have to do what the district has done, which is have teacher specialists. They're not really administrators, although they're doing appraisals. That's kind of a gray area. I'd rather do the legally allowable thing, which is to waive, and if not most, many districts do waivers for APs, especially large ones. And so this person that we would waive, there's 72 of them, we would train them. First of all, they had to get hired. We would train them, we would evaluate them, and they'll be instructional leaders. And if they don't make it, then they will be removed. Unlike a teacher specialist who are not evaluated, not trained as well, and they're still appraising teachers. That doesn't, this way seems much better for students and teachers.
And just to be clear, so this group of 72, as you cited, are different than the Principals Academy.
That's right.
That's a
There's
whole
another
different-
group of 75 people who joined the Principals Academy.
Got it.
Okay. We have already talked about number 26 through number 34, which leaves us with 35 through 37. Does anybody have any questions for the superintendent this evening on 35, 37?
I think we missed 25, but I'm going to just go back real
Oh,
quick.
I had called 24 and 25 together, I think, but please, if you have a question about 25, please.
Just what are the implications of the schedule change, and are there material departures from the prior year?
For the,
This is the local calendar.
the local calendar, the school calendar.
The appraisal
No,
count.
this is the,
Which one is
for
it?
the appraisal system, so I imagine it's all different.
Yes, for the appraisal system, I mean, for the teachers, they'll start on August 28th, but there'll be training, so there's different training dates.
So this one
But
is
it lasts-
central and campus-based non-teachers. So there was some questions that I entertained
Oh, I see.
regarding 11-month versus 12-month employees versus 10-month employees, and I want to make sure that it's kind of combed out, if you will, because it's a little bit unclear and there's no actual attachment on this particular one.
Yeah, Katasha, do you have any information on that?
I need to understand the question better.
Okay.
There's no attachment, no information on this one?
About the difference between
No,
10?
no, on number 25 in general.
Oh, no.
There is. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, the schedule is here.
Yeah, it's part of the agenda item, though.
So is it more information that we need to provide?
Yes, perhaps I'm confused and it is late, but my understanding is that you're asking us to approve the proposed calendar. There is no calendar attached. There's only a staff report, and then it cites those employees based on their month's contract, but it doesn't give any additional detail.
Okay.
Adam, are you looking at this? Is that what you see? Maybe it's a different document.
I'm on Legistar.
So
I'm-
let's,
Anyway,
we'll make sure that.
Let's come back to that one.
That
Let's,
the board, we'll make sure that
But
we
let
get
me
that
clarify
calendar.
just one- So this is supposed to be the calendar for when certain steps in the appraisal calendar need to take place. So for 12-month employees, for instance, the goal-setting conference, which is the conference for when an employee meets with their supervisor to decide what is, the goal going forward, that needs to happen by October 27th. And so it looks like regardless of your duty schedule, it's going to happen on October 27th. But I think as you move forward, there's some differentiation based on whether you're a 10-month employee, 11-month employee, or a 12-month employee. So that's the difference in the cadence.
Right, and so my original question was, what are the implications and are there material departures from the prior year? So is this the same schedule we used last year? And if it is, why are we approving it? But obviously it's different, so what's the change?
So you're required to approve it each year. I haven't compared it to the other year. It looks pretty similar in terms of when we do things, what the cadence is for appraisals, because you go through the whole school year. And so, January or so, you're going to do a progress conference and that kind of thing. But if you want to see the previous calendar, we can do that.
Can we just do a one-pager and give it to the board on what the difference is?
that'd be great.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to number 35 through 37. Does anybody have any questions for the superintendent on 35 through 37?
And just to confirm, 37, certification waiver, that's the 84 individuals we were referring to earlier? Okay.
Great.
For
And
the
that
teachers.
number may change a little bit because we're not done.
Yep. Anything else? No? Okay. I hope that's safe. I think that concludes the review of the agenda. The board will now adjourn to closed session under Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, Open Meetings Act, subsections 551.004 through 551.089. Should board final action, vote, or decision on any matter considered in the closed session be required, such final action, vote, or decision shall be taken at the open meeting covered by this notice upon the reconvening of this public meeting or at a subsequent public meeting of the board upon notice thereof. The board is adjourning to closed session at 10:17 p.m. on August 3rd, 2023. Good evening. This meeting is reconvened at 10:47 PM. The next regular board meeting will be held on Thursday, August 10th at 5:30 PM. With no further business to discuss, this meeting of the board is adjourned at 10:47 PM. Thank you.